minutes and talk about budget assumptions. When we talk about budget assumptions, sometimes people get a little bit confused because they're not sure where they start. Well, it really starts with the school's mission. And then it evolves into what is the vision that the principal has for the school. Too often, when budgets are created, people just go through the motions. All they do is say, well, we're just going to give everybody a 1% increase. The reality is, can that be done? Absolutely. Is it the most effective way to create a budget and to manage a school's finances? Absolutely not. Why? Because you have to go back to that vision and to the plan that carries out the vision. A school must have a strategic plan that lays out the priorities. Otherwise, it simply goes at the whim of the administrator. So what a principal needs to do is to sit down with the involved parties and decide what are the priorities for the coming school year. Again, with a strategic plan, it tells you what you should be doing in years 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. But strategic plans are just that. They're guidelines. And what you need to do is take that plan and review it on an annual basis before your budget is created. Now, why do you do that? You do that so that you can look at the priorities, see how you're doing in accomplishing those goals, and then make the necessary adjustments. Now, the other thing that you've been reading about is the need to look at data. You need to look at different types of data. But again, the data should help support the movement of the school towards accomplishing its goals. Too often, strategic plans are simply created so that they have something that a school can put in a nice brochure or on their website. But if it's not a living document, then it's really a waste of time. And it's incumbent upon the principal to look at that strategic plan and to evaluate the effectiveness of the budget allocations from the previous year. Too often, we simply just look at a budget and say, well, that's great. We made budget, or, oh, sorry, we didn't. If that's the way a school is run, the reality is you now have a better understanding about why some schools are closing. Because you have to dive deeply into the data. And you have to plan accordingly. Now, when you're doing budget assumptions, you have to look at items like enrollment. You need to look at where is your enrollment going to be. Now, for private schools, for Catholic schools, we look at our enrollment numbers and anticipate what they should be. Will we hold on to our students? Will we lose students in the coming year? Now, in the public school system, they also need to do that. They look at trends and they look at enrollment, those students who have signed up for the following year. But again, you always have to make some adjustments. Why? Because things might happen where in a particular town, a company might decide to close, and the children who were going to your school because the parents could afford it suddenly are in a position where, because the plant closed down, because the company closed down, they're no longer able to afford the tuition. So you have to realize that there will be some give and take. When you plan the budget, you also have to look at what are the salary expectations. Again, you have to look, and we'll talk about this later in the course, step increases, and then cost of living increases. You have to look at what new programs are you thinking about starting next year. Are there programs that have been underway for a year or two or maybe even 3 years that are no longer effective? You have to look at capital items. What significant areas need to be repaired within the school building? Do you need new desks? Because the desks that you have are basically about 20 years old and they're falling apart. Do you need to replace carpet? Do you need to replace windows? Do you need to replace plumbing? You have to know that. You have to get the data that says this is what you need in order to accomplish your goals. Again, we're talking about safe schools. What is built into your budget to ensure the safety and well-being of your students and your faculty and your staff? Too often we create budgets because of crisis situations. Suddenly, the income stream is not there, and we go, now what do we do? Again, it shouldn't be such a surprise. And when you're looking at your budget, you need to make sure that you know what to expect. Yes, you're forecasting. Hopefully, you're going to do a lot better job than a lot of weather people do. Because in your particular case, if your forecast is off dramatically, how will you pay the bills? How will you pay your teachers? It's really important that you do the prep work before you start your budget. You have to look at healthcare and anticipate what increases will take place. You also have to factor in items like, do you have a young teacher that is now expanding their family and there'll be a new child, so this individual is going to go from individual coverage to family coverage? Well, that means more money that the school needs to pay out. You need to look at what you're going to do if a teacher has to go out on maternity leave. You have to make sure that you can cover the salaries of the teacher who's on maternity leave, as well as the substitute that you're going to need to hire. Again, it means that you have to actively engage with a variety of people within your community. It's not just the administration sitting down in a room and saying, well, this is what we'll give to this group, this is what we'll give to this group. It can't be that. It must be a budget that is created based upon input from the stakeholders. Does that mean that you need to have complete consensus? No, you never will. In one of the questions that you answered this past week, it talked about utopia. Now, it's nice to think that all of our schools are really this utopian system and a great place where everybody looks perfect, everybody learns and exceeds our expectations. The reality is that we're human. Things happen. How do you adjust to those? Do you have a contingency built into your budget in case you do have something happen? A lot of schools are caught off guard when suddenly major snowstorms occur. And then what happens is you wind up going down the road of how do we pay? How do we pay for the snow removal? How do we pay for overtime for our maintenance staff to clean the sidewalks? Again, those are things that you as the principal need to think about. You need to think about the academics. What makes a good teacher? What makes a good learning environment? And then your budget should reflect that. If it doesn't, you will find that the school will struggle to stay in existence. It means that you need to plan on the front side. That's what your leadership in this process is supposed to be. Again, I hope these thoughts and comments help. As always, if you have any comments or questions for me, please don't hesitate to let me know. I appreciate it, and thanks for listening.